This is the Kitchen Sink WP Podcast, episode 533.
I program my own computer.
We have a server crash. 404 error. Page not found. Links aren't working. System is crashing. System is crashing. System is crashing.
Your old HTML website. Barely alive. We have the technology. We have WordPress. A new website. Better than it was before. Better. Stronger. Faster. Why, hello everybody, this is Adam Silva, host of the Kitchen Sink WP podcast. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. All right, upcoming events. We have one next weekend, WordCamp Porto in Portugal, and that is where WordCamp Europe was, I believe, was it 2 years ago? I think 2022, I believe. Yeah, anyway, so that is the 17th and 18th of May. If you're there, go check it out and say hi to our friend Bob WP. He lives there now. He moved from the States to Porto. So that's cool. That's it for upcoming events. Moving on, segment one in the news. One thing to talk about here, it's a noteworthy reminder that as WordPress is an open source project, I wanted to share something about another one that is called Wikipedia. People contribute, author, fact check, edit, update. And that said, in recent news, website 404 Media, they have a podcast and they are a sponsor and paid news outlet, which is really interesting about all things tech. They have a report sharing that Russia has replaced Wikipedia internally, in their country with a state-sponsored encyclopedia that's a clone of Russian Wikipedia, but with some edits. So, interesting. So with that said, just remember, support open source projects. That's what I wanted to kind of mention there. If you want to read the article, you can check the show notes over at 404 Media. I have a link there as well. All right, moving on to segment two, meat potatoes. This week, I have an interview with a good friend, Tara Claeys. She's awesome, and I don't know why it took so long to have her on the show. Turns out, I thought she was never on this podcast. She was on the Get Options podcast with Kyle and I a couple times. But anyway, here's the interview with Tara. Come back after that, and I will share a tip and tool of the week. All right, take a listen. Today, I am joined by Tara Claeys. Tara is a seasoned web designer and developer with a marketing background going back over 25 years. Her passion for childhood enrichment helps guide a user-focused approach to websites for independent schools and education-focused nonprofits. Additionally, she is an early morning fitness fan, also a runner, and one of my favorite people on this marble we call Earth. Welcome to the Kitchen Sink WP podcast, Tara.
Hi, what a lovely introduction. And oh my gosh, this is silly how I'm on this podcast after it being one of my very earliest introductions to WordPress as a complete novice and newbie.
Yeah.
So long-time listener, long-time fan.
Nice. Thank you.
Can I tell the first time I met you was at
That's the first question is, how did we meet?
All right. How did we meet? So at WordCamp US in Philadelphia, what year was that? I don't know off the top of my head. 2015?
15? Yeah.
I did the day after the thing where there was the community
day,
give back
contributor day. Yeah.
Contributor day. Thank you. Yes. Drawing blank. And I heard your voice before I saw you. And I was like, that's Kitchen Sink Adam. Oh my gosh. And I felt like I was like meeting, fame and was so excited to sit at the team with you. We were on the support team.
Oh yeah, is that when Cami gave us I remember that now. I do remember that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had some work to do. We worked on some whatever it was we were doing, community stuff.
We were with Bridget.
Yeah.
And yep.
Oh yeah, yes. That's great. Yeah. So I mean, obviously we've been friends a long time now, and I was just thinking recently, I'm like, you've never been on this show. You've been on Get Options podcast with Kyle and I, but I was looking back at the list because I'm doing the recaps of people in the past and where are they now, the whole series. And I was like embarrassed that we've become such good friends over the years and yet never been on the podcast. So with that said, now we know, now I recall how we met, which is awesome. And we've done stuff together. We've run together. We've done all these things, but I have questions for you about WordPress in your life.
Okay,
so
I'm ready.
For those who don't know you, tell us, how did you get here? How did you end up into WordPress?
Well, I have a marketing background, but very, very long ago, I worked in ad agencies and marketing director roles and direct mail before computers were really at what they are now and before the internet really. We used to use pagers back in those days. And then I had my first child and decided to stay home. And when I became a mom, that was my full-time job, but I sort of explored a cottage industry. I was an illustrator and had done some gifts for people. So I started doing little shows for other moms and selling my illustrations. And then that turned into a stationery business. And then I learned how to use computer and printer and scanner and all that kind of stuff, and had a stationery business for many years that I could do while being home with my kids. And then eventually that required a website. And so I had someone help me make a website in Front Page.
Oh, wow.
And then Front Page was no longer supported after a while. So I had to kind of switch, and someone recommended WordPress, looked into it, started build my site there. And then a couple of my stationery clients needed websites. So I started doing websites for them. Didn't really know much about the WordPress community at all for a few years, kind of discovered it by accident.
Same.
WordCamp.
Right.
Went to WordCamp Baltimore in 2013. And I told this story a few times, but by accident, I sat at lunch, and joining me were Chris Lemma and Shay Box, who, at the time, Shay was the top theme developer. She had the top selling theme for Genesis. So she told me all about Genesis. And at the time I had taught myself how to make a child theme using the 2010 theme.
Wow.
So I learned how to use Genesis and did that for many years, and got involved in that community, discovered the joy of WordCamps, and kind of was all in for a while after that. Started a podcast with my friend Liam Dempsey that focused on meeting people who were lesser known, heroes within the WordPress space who had stories to tell. That was really fun. And grew my own agency throughout that time as well. So about 4 years ago, I started specializing, which was a big topic of conversation.
And actually, that's my next question for you: is what is the specialization that you do, and why did you pick it?
So I was kind of opposed to the idea of specialization for a while, because I think, and you were kind of with me through some of this in masterminds that we were in, but the idea of just working with one type of company seemed like it would be limiting, and that you wouldn't have enough business, or that it might be boring. I liked working, like anyone, especially when you start out, I think you have to work with a variety and take what you can get.
Right.
But I had done a few child-focused type websites, and I think having been primarily, as my main identity was a mom, it was really fun for me to kind of take some of the knowledge that I had gained over the years as a parent and applying them to websites, and working with websites that were really kind of focused on childhood enrichment. So I had a few clients that were in that space and really liked them, really liked the type of websites that I could build for them. The content was really interesting to me. The images are way more fun than no offense to lawyers, but a law firm, typical law firm website. So it kind of was a little bit of a natural thing, and I just jumped in and have not looked back. I absolutely love it. It's the right thing for me. I'm happy about what I'm doing. I feel like I've become an expert in it, and have really refined a process and grown a little team that also knows my process. So it's actually allowed me to grow my business rather than limit my business, I think, because I tried to get authority and become known in the independent school space.
Yeah, and on that topic of being a specialized person and niching down, whatever you want to call it, I think our friend Sarah did the same.
She did before me.
Right, Sarah Dunn. Yeah. She's been on the
Sarah
podcast.
Dunn.
Sorry.
That's okay. Yes, as a matter of fact, we talked about it a lot, and I kind of thought, I watched her go through that. She had a YouTube channel where she kind of documented her process, and it seemed very frustrating. And she was exploring different industries, like I think chiropractors at one time, and that type of thing. And she was in love with SEO, so she actually has pivoted her business super successfully into doing SEO for the wedding industry.
Right.
And so, she's not even really building websites anymore, but she's doing something that she loves. So yeah, so she was sort of I would say, led the way in this. I I really resisted it for a long time, and I don't think it's right for everyone.
Right.
I think for me, it's been liberating in a lot of ways because it also allows you to say no to things that you might feel compelled to say yes to because they're not in your specialty. So, and then you find other people who will take those other businesses. So
Right.
it works out well that way too.
Yeah, I remember actually when you did that at one point, about 2 years ago, you handed off a few clients. You actually referred a few to my agency, to myself, and some others as well. And some of them worked out, some of them didn't, which is fine, you know. But it is tough. I mean, for a while, I was actually, you mentioned lawyers. I say it's hot to trot, but I built out some basic themes for lawyers and trying to target that as well, because once you know it, it's easy just to replicate it, you know, and they have the budget in theory to do it. But like anything else, prospecting is the hard part, you know. And
Yes, I remember. Yeah, I remember that when you were doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, schools, that they're friendly.
Mm-hmm.
They are not like entrepreneurs. They are not working at 11 o'clock at night and sending you emails. Like they shut down at the end of the day for the most part. They're very respectful. I've not really had a bad experience with any of the school clients that I've worked with.
Yeah.
So there's a mutual respect.
the two law firms I've had both turned out to be learning experiences. I will just say that way. You know,
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I mean, one of them made me completely revamp my contract and my part of my process about like dormancy clauses, and the other one, communication issues. It's the same thing. It's like, but yet I still want to go after them. And the reason I want to go after them is because my father is an attorney, and I know enough of the industry and what they
Sure.
need, but it hasn't worked out. And at this point, I'm like, yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do about that. So.
Yeah, well, there's definitely an opportunity there. There are
Yeah.
a lot of companies
Right.
that specialize in that or who sell themes for
Right.
law firms or, different platforms that
Right.
have themes for law firms as well as other, accountants and life coaches and
Right. Everything under the
industry.
sun.
Certainly for schools too, right? It's not,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. The other question I want to ask you is, from that background, as well as the focus on a day-to-day now, do you consider yourself more designer or developer?
That's a good question too. I do it all, I've been fortunate to have a small team of contractors who help me. So we offer ongoing support, and I have Lauren, who's worked for me for 5 years, who helps handle those support requests, which really allows me to focus on new client projects. So usually we have anywhere from 2 to 4 projects going on at a time, anywhere between onboarding, design, development, in one of those phases. But then I have 60 or 70 clients who are on maintenance who send requests and have things that they need help with. So she helps with that. And then I have had a couple of developers who work with us and who help now build out sites. So I used to build them out myself, all of them, the whole thing. And we use Beaver Builder. But I have Charu now who works with me, and she does a great job of building out sites. And I'm pretty picky about my process. So I've documented how we do things, where we put our code, how we label our code, all that kind of stuff. So she helps with that. And then Tom Ransom, who's worked with me for many, many years, is a senior developer who's helped me develop some custom plugins and custom things that we do. We're very focused right now on accessibility, so I've been learning a ton about that, and not everything in Beaver Builder is accessible. Some of the modules are not accessible, so we've built our own plugin Tom has to help us be able to apply some classes to some elements so that we can really teach our clients about the importance of accessibility. And then about a year and a half ago, I brought on a designer who helps me with design as well. So I have my hands in all of it, but now I have help. So at least to kick things off, and then I kind of go through and can give it my own touch.
So do you do the sales yourself? And then do you also
Yeah.
project manage it once you kind of hand it off, in a sense?
Yes, I would say my main job is project management. I don't even think of myself as sales.
Okay.
I have tried a lot of business development things, but I basically just rely on referrals and they just come in. So
Right.
I don't actively sell. I go to a couple conferences, but
Right.
I don't actively I do proposals. So I guess that is sales.
Right.
Yeah, but now that I have Alana as a designer who does a great job and has worked with me now long enough that she knows my aesthetic and my process and tools and all of that, she's super helpful as well, and she does a great job. So it's nice to have a team that also kind of gives us a little bit more authority and bulk in working with larger schools, which we've started to do now too with some other custom development Tom's done. We're integrating with some pretty big APIs and stuff like that. So
Very cool.
we're doing a lot for a little agency.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I've grown. Mine grew up to 4 or 5 people at one point. But the best hire I made, or not the best hire, because I don't want them to hear this the wrong way. One of the best hires I made was a PM when I hired Sally.
Yes,
because
Sally's amazing.
She is amazing. I'm good at BD. I'm good at this piece of it, and that's my strength.
Right.
Besides burnout, we'll get to that in a second. But I was the total roadblock. Like, I would just drop the ball on stuff. I mean, I'm a good PM if that's all I'm doing.
Right.
So but literally hiring her, and then not just hiring her, but then letting her do her job was hard. Giving up control. Same thing with I had Amy as a designer, and I had I have Gerwin, who's a developer. He's fine. I had someone else. Jen did some writing for us, and then I had a QA. Who did my QA? Patty did QA for us. Just fresh eyes at the very end.
Too.
At the very end of a project, we needed fresh eyes. She was fantastic. But for me to give up control, give up that thing to Sally, was not easy. That was probably the hardest thing I had to do.
Yeah. I don't see myself doing that. I really like to manage. I am not a control freak, but I like to have control and I like to manage it. I like that. So I don't know if have you ever done like a strength finder? I just did a strength finder test.
Yes.
Find out where your strengths lie. And I am like a task type of person. So managing the project it fits for me.
Mine is literally, I should put that in the show notes. Mine, I think the top one were like, be an actor, a comic, a connector of people, a radio DJ. I'm like, you think? Yeah. So,
Right.
So the podcast works,
Yes, exactly.
So.
Yeah, I do have a podcast now too, but I like the logistics of managing it too.
So I have a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
So this is maybe a little hot take on something, but I'm curious, what do you think right now is the biggest problem WordPress has these days?
I probably could have answered this a lot better a few years ago when I was very engaged in Twitter and WordPress. Since COVID, I haven't been, so I'm not really up on the gossip or what people are having trouble with. I also don't use WordPress blocks and don't plan to.
The Gutenberg, as far as the full site editor, right?
For theme, I use the block editor for posts and custom post types and that type of thing, but I haven't really gone into developing custom blocks or any of that, and don't really feel a need to for the type of sites that we build.
Same.
We use Beaver Builder, and sometimes we use Elementor if a client has it already or requests it. But I love Beaver Builder, and that works really well for me, and Beaver Themer, so I don't even really have to do the kind of work that I think most people are complaining about WordPress. As somebody who's been really trying to engage in the accessibility community within WordPress, I'd say there are a lot of issues with accessibility in WordPress. And, I think WordPress is great. It's given me a chance to learn a ton and make a living and meet wonderful people. So I don't really have any complaints about it. I think people have their beefs with it and how it's being run or those types of things. I don't really I wasn't a good fit for me to be a contributor because I'm not a big coder, and I just kind of felt like the way that it's managed, it's hard to kind of get your foot in the door, and it's hard to know who's leading and who you're reporting to. So I never got involved in that, but obviously great things happen. So the people who are committed to it and spend the time to figure it out and help make it what it is, I really respect and I'm grateful for.
It's a great answer. It's a fair answer too. Yeah, I mean, it's been asked of me recently, and I have some thoughts as well. But it's not about me today. It's about you.
Well, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
have as much. I used
Yeah.
to be way more involved
Right.
in WordPress community than I am now.
Yeah, it's changed a lot since COVID. I mean, that's the problem. So, it's just a matter. It's just last time I saw you in person was WordCamp US last year.
Yeah,
We went for the run. That was awesome, by the way. So
that was fun.
So-
the Monument Tour.
Monument Tour. So 2 more questions. One's pretty easy. One's also easy. First and
Okay.
foremost, have you dealt with any burnout running your own business? And if you do, how do you deal with it? Or what's your recharge? How do you get over that?
I really like what I do. So I've been super busy lately. And so I don't know that I experience burnout in the sense of like, I don't want to do this anymore. I think I can work 12 hours a day and still feel like I could keep going a lot of days. When I have downtime, I usually am looking for the next thing I can work on. So I really love it. So I don't really think I've hit a burnout phase. I've definitely had times where I feel like I just want to walk away from it because I feel like I'm not doing it well enough, or I don't understand enough, or we've made a mistake, or, something's not as good as I want it to be. So I think I do hit those maybe imposter syndrome moments, or just feeling like it's like don't know what I'm doing, even though then I can tell you that I really, really do.
Right.
So I think those are the times where I feel not burnt out, but just kind of overwhelmed and lost, or not good enough. Yeah.
Right. If someone were to ask you, let's say, someone came along who's in their early 20s, we'll go with a woman, underrepresented in the community of the world, and they wanted to get into web development, what would you recommend? What would you advise them to do?
I think joining the community is the best thing to do. And actually, now that you say that, going back to your question about WordPress and tech in general, I do wish we had more diversity in this space. And especially when I look for contractors, it's not just the male dominated field. And that's, understandable because of the history of how, what was acceptable and how we've been sort of indoctrinated through the years in society. So it's kind of, we're coming out of that a bit. But I just would love to see more diverse people, more people of color in development in general and in WordPress. But to go to your question about what to tell people, I think I would embrace and love to help and tell people that everyone's welcome here and not to be intimidated by how it looks. And I know there are some great people who are making a lot of efforts in this way. I don't know. I think it's just going to take time to change the culture. And it's interesting because when I've had some interns work with me who are doing computer science or web stuff in school, they're not learning WordPress. And I don't know, it's not a subject that people learn. So you could tell somebody to go major in computer science or something,
Right.
but they're not going to learn WordPress. And maybe WordPress isn't the future, so maybe that's not necessary. But there are a lot of jobs in WordPress, and I think most people who are here are self-taught in it.
Right.
So, what to tell people if they want to get involved in WordPress is get involved in the community and go online, learn from videos, and find somebody who can mentor you, try to be and then once you're there, be as welcoming and get other people excited
Right.
about it too.
There's always somebody who knows more than you, and there's always somebody who knows less than you. So help where you can. That's how I always looked at it. So I was going to mention about the issue of gender in tech. A great book I recommend is called Coders, which I learned a lot from. It's not a coding book. It's about the story of technology and how actually the first coders were women.
Yes.
It's an amazing book. I recommend it to so many people because I had no idea. And it only shifted when money came into the picture. It's a control
What's
issue.
that book and movie, the Hidden Figures?
Hidden Figures, same concept.
Yeah,
same thing,
not
same
just
story.
women, but black women,
Black
right?
women.
Back in the 60s.
Right.
So
Space race,
so
right.
it's really frustrating
Yeah.
to see how that's changed. The
It
same
really-
thing happened with beer, by the way. Did you know that the first real makers and drinkers of beer were women until it became an industry, and then the men took over.
I did not know that. Seriously?
Yes,
Wow.
it is true.
See? We just mess things up.
I know it.
I'll take the blame. It's okay. Yeah. So. All right. Last question for you. What are the 3 tools that, actually 2 questions, but first of all, what are the 3 tools you use on a daily basis that people may want to know about? Okay, your go-to tools.
Yeah, all the Googles, all the things. Google Gmail, Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Drive, all of that. Absolutely. I have this thing I bought on AppSumo many years ago that I really couldn't live without. And it used to be called Cloud App. Now it's called Zight. And it's basically a screen recording and screenshot tool app. And I send screenshots and screen recordings all the time. I mean, I have thousands and thousands and thousands of them in this thing. So I could not really live without that. I used to use this thing called Spoke app, which automatically recorded my Zoom calls. I think it's kind of gone defunct. They've kind of disappeared. It's not working well. So I'm looking for a replacement. But then probably the third thing we use all the time, in addition, are you saying separate from like WordPress and Beaver Builder?
Yeah.
That's not
well, I guess if you want to use, if you wanted to say that's the thing, like you could.
That, yeah. And Figma. We really use Figma.
Okay. Cool.
A lot, yeah.
How do you spell Zight?
Zight.
Okay, I'll find it, put a link in the show notes. So awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Lastly, where can people find you if they want to connect and reach out?
My website is designtlc.com, and I'm on LinkedIn, Tara Claeys, Claeys, and that's mostly where you'll find me. I try to spend more time on LinkedIn, although I'm not there very much. But I used to be on Twitter every day, a lot. Now I'm not really on Twitter much.
I need to figure out a way to kind of cut my Twitter habit. Yeah.
Yeah. So not really on Twitter. Okay. And then on Slack too. We have our Slack group, and I'm in WordPress Slack.
And the last thing real quick, you were the co-founder of that with Sarah, right? The business of WordPress. Right.
The business of WordPress Slack.
Which is very active. Well, I mean, it has its ups and downs, but there's enough people that keep it going. Yeah. So
yes, it's a great community there.
Right. Okay. Well, awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. Sorry it took so long to get you on this podcast and the invitation there, but you're always welcome. And I'll see you. Are you going to go? Last thing, are you going to WordCamp US this year?
I'm thinking about it. I hadn't been thinking about it, but a very wonderful WordPress community member passed away, Jocelyn Mozak, and I didn't know her. Well, I met her, but followed her journey, and was from Portland, and actually, so I'd love to go and be part of some kind of memorial for her there. So I'm thinking about it. I haven't bought a ticket, but it's in September, right?
Same,
so I've got a little time to think about it, but it's likely.
Yeah,
it's likely I'll make it out there.
Well, maybe I'll see you there on the other coast, since we're both here on the East Coast.
I know, I'll just pop up would be fun. Sometime. I think we should get together on the East Coast.
I think so too.
And
all right.
Maybe go for a run. Maybe you could just run up here. You could just run to DC. I mean, how many miles is that? It'd probably be like, a short little jaunt for you.
A little warm up. Yeah, something like that. Well, thank you again so much. And
thanks for having me.
Of course. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
And again, thanks, Tara, for being on the podcast. As I mentioned, you are one of my favorite people, and you're just awesome. So again, thanks. All right, moving on. Segment 3, tip and tool of the week. This week's tip, I don't think I've ever mentioned it, but it's something I use from time to time. And it always amazes me how good this product is. And I have no connection to them from a sponsorship or an affiliate, nothing. It's called Gravity Wiz. They're a set of tools for Gravity Forms add-ons. They have 47 of them or more than that now. It's just really cool. I use them a lot. Kind of forget about them sometimes, what it can do. Check it out. It's over at gravitywiz.com. They use Gravity Perks as the name of the actual add-ons. So check it out. It is premium, yes, and it starts at $60 a year for one perk, $150 for 3 perks, 3 sites, and then like $300 a year for all of them. But if you need to do some more things within the Gravity Forms world of form generation and content of that data, you can do that. So check it out over at gravitywiz.com. All right, that is it for this week. I'm going to wrap it up here. If you have any questions, go ahead, send it in via email, adam@kitchensinkwp.com, or use that speak pipe function on the website. Want to support the show? That'd be fantastic. You could do it two ways. One, become a Patreon, or two, buy me a coffee. KitchensinkWP.com/Patreon is that link. And the buy me a coffee button is on the website. If you want to sponsor the show, you can do that. Form on the website, fill it out, get right back to you. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Now go out and do some awesome things with WordPress. All right? Bye-bye.